And it's fact, and it's so frustrating. I am just so mad at this book. It's just disgusting. Oh my gosh, I have never been this offended by a book before. Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange, and today I officially want to kick off my reading vlog for the month of October. If you missed my TBR at the beginning of the month, I am planning on reading the scariest books on my Goodreads shelves. And that's because I have always wanted to find horror books that will actually scare me. I have found some in the past, but not recently. So I decided to do this project, and I thought it would be really fun to vlog my experience and hopefully find not only some new favorites, but some books that will scare the pants off of me. So it should be pretty fun. I definitely hope you'll stick around and see how this month goes. If you haven't watched my TBR video, I definitely recommend it. I will have it linked in the cards and down below. Otherwise, let's talk about what I'm currently going to be reading. My husband has my son out at the park right now. He's on a little play date with his little girlfriend, so that not only gives me the opportunity to film this clip, but if I can get through this clip fast enough, I can also hopefully get some reading done before they're back. I always like to have an audiobook on the go, so the one I'm planning on starting is Let's Go Play at the Adams, which is supposed to be a really creepy book about a babysitter that gets kidnapped and basically held hostage by the children that she is watching over. It's supposed to be super dark. I've seen lots of people give it really negative reviews, but I'm here for it. And my plan is to listen to it before I fall asleep, and I'm hoping that that will lead to some really creepy moments. And I also plan on reading a book that wasn't on my original TBR. For those of you that follow my channel, you might notice I'm not the best with sticking with TBRs. I try, but I get distracted, and this book arrived at my library. I heard this is actually really scary, so I thought it would work perfectly for this, and that is The Resurrectionist by E.B. Hudspeth. And this is a book, I think, set in the 1800s, and it follows a person who is the son of a gravedigger, and he has this hypothesis that all the mythical creatures of the world are basically the ancestors of humans. And if you're familiar with this book, it's full of some really creepy diagrams, and it's just got a lot of like body horror in it, of just like muscles and dissecting bodies. And I've heard that it's, again, like really dark, which is what I'm going for, and a really unique style. So I might actually try this one now. For the most part, I'm going to try to read my books at night so that I get that best experience and really try to just put all the pieces in place to give myself the opportunity to get really scared. But sometimes I do have the opportunity to read during the day, and I will take advantage of that. So this afternoon, I think I'm going to start with this one until my son gets back from the park. But otherwise, I will be reporting back once I have gotten into some of these books, and will let you know my initial thoughts. Hey, so just want to do a quick update on The Resurrectionist. Since we last talked, I've gotten about 50 pages in, and I'm really liking it. It's definitely not my usual kind of horror because it's very historically based, and that's not something I normally read. I really don't read much historical fiction, but the premise behind this book is so cool because it reads like a piece of nonfiction, and it's basically one of those stories that is meant to be treated as if it was real, and it's so compelling and really well done. So I love how it starts out with a note from the publisher, and I took a second to think, well, is this the publisher of this book, or is it the publisher of the book that I'm supposedly reading, which is all about the account of this doctor? And I definitely can see why people are mentioning that it has body horror elements, because there's lots of diagrams of bodies within it. At the beginning, it's just kind of the setup, but we get to see the history of this man, his childhood and upbringing, and how he became fascinated in human biology, and his training through medical school. I'll say that in terms of it being a scary book, I'm gonna guess that it's not gonna be scary for me, and it's because of the fact that it's so factual that it does feel a little bit dry. I'm weirdly enjoying how dry it is, but it's not making it very scary because it kind of reads like a textbook. And again, I don't even mean that in a negative way, but I've never been scared of something I've read in one of my university textbooks. So really cool so far. I'm loving the illustrations. Basically, they include letters from the doctor as well as different sketches that he's done. Like this is supposedly his wife and his child and all of that. So I'm really looking forward to getting to get further into it and getting into the supposedly creepy parts. Again, I don't think it's going to totally work for me in terms of being that super scary read, but I'm enjoying it. So I'm definitely going to keep going. I'm excited to see where it goes from here, and it's a relatively short book because there's so many pictures, so I'll definitely fly through this one pretty fast. Hey everyone, I thought I'd do a little bit of a reading update. It is currently about 9:30 and I put my son to bed, had a bit of a snack, and before I go and read before bed, I thought I would just update you. Let's start by talking about The Resurrectionist. And a funny story here, the reason I picked up this book and decided to put on my TBR at the last minute was because I have two online friends who were telling me that The Resurrectionist was one of the most gruesome, disturbing, and messed up books they had ever read. And because I knew I was doing this project, I thought, perfect, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I looked it up on my library's website, ordered it to my local library, picked it up, and after I filmed that last clip, I ended up messaging them and saying, oh, I love this book, and I was telling them about where I was in the story. And they messaged me back and said, I think you got the wrong book. So this is a horror book, but it's not the right book. It's not the book that they were telling me to read. The one that they were referring to is by James Wraith White, and I guess that book is super disturbing. This book definitely deals with some dark subject matter. It's basically about a doctor that does terrible experiments on his patients, or you could almost call them victims. And so it has a lot of body horror where he is sewing wings onto the backs of these women. And then of course he's really surprised that they seem to just die for random reasons because he's a terrible surgeon who just experiments and tries to see what will happen if he does these terrible, terrible things to these people. So it definitely deals with some darker subject matter. It's not like I picked up a funny book. This is horror again, but it's not the most disturbing book that you'll ever read, and especially again because it's told in almost a factual style, it just doesn't have that really intimate feeling that tends to really get me scared. And so I'm definitely going to keep reading it. I am really enjoying it. I'm partway through and I'm very intrigued to finish up. It's honestly a pretty short book with all the illustrations, so I will be finishing this. But in terms of my project, it's kind of a fail because I don't expect it to be one of the scariest books I've ever read. I also started reading Exquisite Corpse this week by Poppy Z. Brite, and this is the first-person story that is told from the perspective of a serial killer, a man who has killed multiple victims, and it's a very dark story. Compared to The Resurrectionist, it's way more messed up, and it's definitely what I was looking for when I was trying to pick out books for this project. So I'll say all the content warnings. This person is not only a murderer, but he also does terrible things in terms of sexual assault to his victims. And within just the first few chapters, that is described in vivid detail. And it's also really weird to read this book because it does have queer representation. The serial killer himself is gay or at least queer, and then he victimizes young gay boys. And of course, the author, Poppy Z. Brite, is someone who is queer themselves. And so if this book didn't have Own Voices representation, I would feel really odd about a story like this, just because it definitely does not paint this gay character in a nice light. But of course, representation really means representation across the board, so both victims and villains. And I'll say that while I love the premise of this, while it has all the things that are checking my boxes of really scary books, I'm not actually invested in the story. I have read it over a couple nights and it's just not grabbing me. I'm finding myself not actually excited to pick it up again. If I'm honest, I want to go back to The Resurrectionist tonight. but I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I think I'm gonna put aside Exquisite Corpse for now, and if I'm called back to it, I'll pick it up, but I might end up DNFing it just because I know that even though it has all those dark elements, if I'm not immersed in the story, I'm not gonna find it scary. It's the kind of book that I will read the words and not actually get any kind of emotional experience out of it, which again is what's gonna make a book scary for me. And finally, I did start my audiobook, Let's Play at the Adams, and so far I'm really liking the setup. So right at the beginning, it jumps into the action. You have this babysitter who wakes up and she is tied down to the bed. She is basically held hostage by the children that she is supposed to be taking care of. And I'm right at the beginning, so the kids are currently discussing how they're going to manage this and how they're going to keep her contained so that they can be free while their parents are away and just enjoy life. But they have to make sure that the babysitter doesn't die, but also stays under control. And again, in terms of a setup, I am so here for that. The actual situation that the babysitter is in is really terrifying to me. So I'm hoping that this book will deliver, because in terms of a setup, it definitely looks promising. If I put myself in that babysitter's shoes, that would be horrifying. I'm a huge fan of any kind of kidnapping, hostage type narratives. It's just something that's kind of something I enjoy, and I do read a lot more in like thrillers. So when I see it in a horror book, I am all for it, and yeah, I'm excited to get back to it. I am reading it again slowly because I'm trying to only read it when I can really pay attention. So normally I listen to audiobooks when I'm cooking and cleaning, but I really want to get that best experience and the best possible chance of getting scared. So I'll report back when I'm further in, but definitely liking that one so far. Possibly a favorite, we shall see. Hey, so ignore the mess in my kitchen. I'm purposely trying to do it at this angle to hide most of the dishes, but it's nap time here. I just finished filming a video and I'm going to go edit that, but I'm making coffee at the moment, so I wanted to grab a cup. I have my Grim Reaper mug here that I absolutely love, but I also want to give you guys a bit of an update because it's the weekend. And so last night, my husband so kindly suggested for date night that we watch a horror movie, and he said that I could pick out whatever and he would just watch it. He didn't care. So I decided that we would watch The Babysitter on Netflix. And if you don't know, it's about a preteen boy who's basically afraid of everything. His parents go away for a weekend holiday, so they get him a babysitter. The babysitter seems really cool, but at night something happens, things go terrible, and the story goes from there. So I'll say that it's a horror movie, but with a lot of comedy. It's so campy, but I kind of love it. And I knew I would love it, but I was nervous about having my husband try it out because we don't always have the exact same taste. Thankfully, he also thought it was super funny, like ridiculous, tons of plot holes, but it kind of made for a good movie night because we were talking as we were watching it and laughing and kind of poking fun at it. So it ended up being just perfect. So exactly what we wanted. Definitely not like a scary horror movie. I'm hoping that he's up for watching at least one more horror movie with me this month. So for that, if we get to it, I'm hoping to either watch Us or The Train to Busan. Both of those are really high up on my watch list, and so hopefully that'll happen. I'll keep you posted if it does. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun last night. So I also wanted to give you an update on what I'm listening to, which is Let's Go Play at the Atoms. I'm about 50% in, and I honestly don't even know what to tell you guys because it is so messed up. It's basically torture porn, but because it's a woman tied up, you can expect all the content warnings for all the terrible things that can be done to a woman that is being held captive. And I'm okay sometimes with reading those really problematic areas of horror if they're done well, but I don't think this is done very well. I really don't like how the author is treating the woman and her victimization, because a lot of the story is told kind of through her thoughts, and what she is thinking just bothers me. Obviously she's having the thoughts of someone who is being victimized, but I feel like the author is just so missing the mark. I know this book is older and it's feeling dated in all the worst ways. So, it's a tough one. I totally understand why a lot of people DNF or don't finish this book. I do plan on pushing through to the end, but it's a rough one. Like, it's just uncomfortable in all the worst ways, and I just don't like the messaging that the author is putting out there, because that's the other thing. I'm probably gonna sound picky, but the narrative voice, because it's told in a third person perspective, and the narrator who is telling us what all the characters are thinking is almost overpowering the story itself. So instead of getting this like close perspective, we're almost getting this like voice which feels like this manly man who is just telling us what this woman is thinking and what it's like to be a woman, and it just feels very patronizing, and it's rubbing me the wrong way. It's probably worse because I'm listening to it as an audiobook, so again I have this male voice telling me what it's like to be a victim, and there's so much stuff I want to get into, but I really don't, because I do want to keep this vlog as spoiler free as possible. But I do not know where this book is going to land for me. It's going downhill quickly though. I am again going to finish it, but I knew what I was getting myself into. I thought I did, but now that I'm reading it, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking, Rachel? This book is sick, and I don't know if I want to keep going, but I will. I will for you all. Okay, so I just got back from the park. My son was playing on the playground, so I was listening to the audiobook for Let's Go Play at the Atoms. And oh my gosh, I have never been this offended by a book before. It was terrible. So I'm going to keep this as spoiler free as I can. But again, this book involves everything terrible that can happen to a woman who is being held hostage. And basically, this author is so offensive. It's this guy who clearly has no understanding of sexual violence. And so think of all the stereotypes around rape victims and all of the misconceptions, and then put them in a book and have them all there. And it's fact, and it's so frustrating. I am just so mad at this book. It's just disgusting, not even disgusting in a gory way. It is disgusting in the fact that some man thinks that what he is writing is correct. Like, how dare he write this? Oh my gosh, this book was written in the 70s. I don't even feel like that's that old. I don't feel like he has any right to be writing this crap. I am so mad. I can't remember the last time I've gotten this mad at a book. I'm almost done. I'm gonna finish it just so I can do a proper review in a future video. But oh my gosh, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I am so mad right now. And my son is asleep. He just went down, so I gotta go to work because it's a work day here. But I had to film this clip while it was still fresh in my head because I'm fuming. I am fuming, and I can't remember the last time a book got me this upset, like ever. Hey, so I have calmed down quite a bit since my last reading update. It has been several days and I'm now reading a few new things. The first is a book called Trapped by Jack Kilborn, which is about a group of teenagers that go out to camp in the wilderness on this supposedly deserted island, but they're actual cannibals there. And I'll say that the character work in this book is not great. There are so many eye-rolling moments when the characters are doing just really unrealistic things. There are times that they're more interested or focused on their relationships, on their sex lives, than the fact that there are cannibals coming to get them. And I really hate that in books when the relationships and the romance supersede the horror. But I will say that this book had a really compelling opening. So there was a prologue where someone wakes up and they are paralyzed, they are strapped down on some kind of medical bed, and there is someone who is nearby, and they also hear voices screaming in the background. And so it's made me really want to finish reading this book because I want to know how they get to that point. And this book is gruesome. There are some grisly scenes. There's a scene involving nails, which was definitely horrific to imagine. And yeah, there's just a lot of cannibal stuff. So all of the things surrounding cannibalism that you would expect happened in this book. And if you enjoy some more gruesome, grisly horror, this one is possibly one you want to check out. So I'll see where it goes. I don't think it's going to be an all-time favorite, but in terms of the goriness when it comes to scariness, this one is definitely fitting the bill in that regard, at least. Not perfect, but definitely lots of body horror. And I'm also reading The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. This is actually a reread for me. And I read this several years ago and really did enjoy it. It was a solid 4-star read, but rereading it now, I'm actually enjoying it so much more. I really feel like this book is going to become an all-time favorite, and I'm just appreciating everything about it even more the second time around. I am partially listening to this as an audio, which is narrated by the author, and his narration is fantastic. In terms of an atmospheric audiobook, this is really fitting the bill. I'm trying to listen to this one at night as much as possible, and it's just slow and creepy, and I love the descriptions. I'm really connecting with the mother, Chris, and just her worry as a parent. I am just loving every detail of this book. I'm fairly far in already because I'm just immersed in the story and just do not want to put it down, which is such a good feeling, especially for a reread because I know where the story is going. I've also watched the movie, but I am just immersed in the story and I'm loving it. So definitely see this one ending up on my all-time favorite horror books list whenever I remake that. But wow, I love possession stories, I love exorcism stories, and this one is the top of the top. It's so worth reading, even if you don't normally read classics. Oh, this one is good. I am so happy to be enjoying this one. And yeah, I would say so far it's pretty scary, at least to me. It's a subgenre of horror that I find personally very terrifying. And this book, it's just working for me. It's giving me the creeps. It's making my hair stand on end. And yeah, it's exactly what I wanted this month. It's the perfect Halloween read. And I also want to mention that my husband and I are currently playing a horror video game together. I can't remember the name, but I'll have it linked in the description box. Basically, you play online with a bunch of friends and you basically play as Ghostbusters. So you go into this house that's supposedly haunted. You bring in different objects like crucifixes and flashlights, and you have to use your skills to try to figure out what type of ghost is haunting the place. And the lights are flickering, things are moving in the house, and it's so scary, it's so atmospheric. I definitely recommend playing with the lights off if possible. My husband and I are using this as an excuse for date night, so at least a couple times a week throughout the month of October, we've been playing this together online with friends, and I've been having so much fun. I am one of those people that is so easily scared by jump scares, so every time that something moves on the screen, I jump and shriek, and it's just a lot of fun. It's probably really obnoxious to hear us play it, but we're really enjoying it. It just brings me back because we used to play a lot of video games before we had a kid together, and it's been a while, but this one is perfect for Halloween, so highly recommend it. Again, I'll have it linked down in the description box because I can never ever remember the name. Hey, I'm back again with another reading update. So I picked up Off Season by Jack Ketchum, which of course is that classic cannibal story that everyone seems to love, and I'm reading it with my patron book club, so I'm definitely going to finish it this month. But I'll be honest, I think I'm tired of reading cannibal stories right now. Of course, I just finished reading Trapped by Jack Kilborn, but I also had previously read just last month Brother by Anya Alborn because that was the pick for September for my book club. And I'm getting really burnt out of the whole, ooh, humans eating humans thing. It's making me wish I put more psychological horror on this TBR because while I enjoy gross out and gruesome body horror and all of that, it doesn't necessarily scare me. If anything, I usually find it fun, but I'm just kind of getting bored of it at the moment, which is a weird thing to say. So I'm struggling with that one. I'm about halfway through, probably more like, a quarter into the book. So it could turn around. It could really grab my attention. I know a lot of people love it, so I'll see it through and hopefully my opinion will change once I'm all done. And I also started reading The Omen by David Seltzer, which I definitely thought could be a new favorite because it's a book about a creepy demon child, and it also centers around the Catholic Church, a lot of things that I really like reading about in my horror books. And I gotta say, so far I'm a little bit disappointed by it. I'm about halfway through and it's not quite working the way I thought it would for me. So I'll just say that it's not as creepy as I expected it to be, and it's kind of a book about misdirection because I'll say that everything else except the boy in the story appears to be the source of the creepiness. And we as a reader know right from the beginning, right from the premise, that it's the boy that is actually the issue. He is, the omen or the, representation of the devil. But the way the book is told, we're supposed to kind of look at everything else, like maybe it's the house, maybe it's the governess, and I just would rather have the book amp up the creepiness, make the child so much more disturbing, and have these like really creepy scenes with him. Again, I know I'm not finished the book, so I do expect that will happen, but it would be different if this book was a surprise. Like if this was a thriller and I didn't know everything that we know about the boy, but we know that right from the beginning. We know where the story's going, so I'd rather it just go there. So in terms of execution, not really working for me, and I have a feeling that the movie actually works a lot better. So while I'm not loving the book, I definitely do want to watch the movie at some point because I just feel like a story like this will work a lot better on the screen. It's actually kind of reminding me of The Babadook, which is one of my favorite horror movies, and it's making me want to rewatch it instead of reading this book, unfortunately. So that's about it for my reading update. Otherwise, I'm gonna head to bed and get some more reading done. Is anyone else like me and pick up like the giant Costco box of Halloween candy, even though they're not really expecting any trick-or-treaters this year? And it's only me and my husband in this house that are gonna be eating this. So yeah, don't judge us that there's, apparently the box, we opened it upside down. But apparently there's 120 little chocolate bars in here. So I guess 60 of them will have my name on it. I've got a big sweet tooth, so honestly we'll get through this box. Is that embarrassing to admit? I don't know if I should keep this in the vlog, but it's probably staying. I'm gonna eat a couple of chocolate bars now and head to bed. So last night my husband and I watched Vampires vs. the Bronx, which is a movie that has a plot that's really similar to When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. I did not like that book, but I like the premise of it. And so this movie basically took the same premise, but did it so much better. And I just, really enjoyed it. Definitely not an all-time favorite, but if you like kids fighting a monster, this is a good one to check out. And yeah, I just thought it was a lot of fun. And you can probably tell my son is up, so I better get going. Hi, I'm back to close out the reading vlog, but before I get into it, I want to ask, what do you think of this angle for recording? I'm tempted to use it for my regular videos because I'm still in my living room and I actually get to sit on a piece of furniture. If you didn't notice, I always sit on the floor in my videos, but in this case, I'm actually on my couch and it's kind of nice and comforting. So I'm tempted to do this a little bit more often if the lighting looks okay. But going back to the reading vlog, I'll say that this month did not go as I expected. You got to see there were some ups and downs. I ended up picking out a book that wasn't actually scary at all and was never intended to be that scary. And I ended up having mixed feelings about a lot of the books that I picked out from my October TBR, which is really disappointing because, as I mentioned, I spent a long time preparing that list. I added books and took books off, and I really thought that this was going to be a strong month. Often October leads to generating a lot of the books that end up on my best of the year videos, and I'll just say that that's not necessarily the case this time. I wish I had given more thought to the type of scary books that I picked out. I definitely went a lot for body horror and gruesome horror, as I mentioned in my previous clip, and I really should have given a little bit more thought to what makes a book personally scary for me. So for example, earlier this year, I found a scene in The Changeling by Victor Laval really scary. And a lot of other people were surprised by that, saying that that horror book isn't actually that intense. But what worked for me with that book is that it involved a scene that was very close to my heart. There was a scene that was terrifying to me as a parent and a situation that I found personally horrifying, and I could really picture myself being there and just how helpless I would feel. And so I wish I had given that more thought when I was preparing my list. So most of these books didn't actually terrify me. And if anything, I just got really tired of a lot of body horror, and I was like, oh great, another person getting eaten, because I kind of put too many cannibal books on this TBR. Overall, I'm definitely glad I did this, and I would love to possibly do this again if this was fun to watch. I appreciate for those of you that are sticking around to the end. This is definitely the longest reading vlog I've ever done, but I really tried not to be too repetitive in my clips, but actually give you some good content, some good reactions as I was going along. I really enjoy watching these kind of reading vlogs, so I thought it'd be fun to make something like this. So please give me some feedback if it's something you'd like to see, or if you have ideas for other reading vlogs with different themes that you think would be fun to see in like the next year. Now, I do owe you some final results for all of this. So in terms of scariest book of the month, that definitely goes to my reread of The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I ended up holding off and reading the last few scenes, those showdown moments between the exorcist and the demon, until I could read them at night, and it definitely added to the experience. And I just personally found this book to be very terrifying. I've said before that I do come from a Catholic upbringing. I was very much taught not to play with Ouija boards, that the devil is real, and that people legitimately can become possessed. I actually remember when I was a kid that we would have the priest over for the diocese that was in charge of exorcisms. And of course, now as an adult, I'm kicking myself because I never asked him anything about that. But I definitely think that this book, hit home for me because of those religious overtones. But at the same time, I do know people who agree with me and call this book really scary, even if they don't have that background. So personally, this is one that I'm definitely going to be included whenever I make that updated scariest book recommendations list. And I just really liked it. While I was rereading it and again had seen the movie, I knew where it was going. I just found it to be so atmospheric and again, so terrifying, partially because it felt very possible to me. So yeah, highly recommend this one. I just adore it. It's definitely worth your time, and hopefully will give you the same scary experience that it gave me. Otherwise, I wanted to finish out this vlog before the end of the month so I could put this up before Halloween. So I don't have any clips to show you of Halloween night. My plan is to watch another creepy horror movie. I'm thinking of maybe watching Us, or again, Train to Busan, which is maybe less scary, but I like zombies. So we'll see what we get to. I hope you all have a really safe Halloween, whatever your plans are. So down below, please let me know what was the scariest book that you ended up reading in October, and also share with me what your plans are for Halloween. I will, of course, be returning back with reviews of my final thoughts on all the books that I did finish in this video. So they're going to be more structured and just kind of give you a good snapshot of the synopsis and the plot and everything that I thought about the book in a more organized way, because with reading vlogs, you get different reactions, but I'll give you some final thoughts now that I have all of the books done. So expect that video coming soon. I'll probably hold off posting it for a few weeks just because I know as someone who watches a lot of booktube, I find it very repetitive if people post the same videos back to back of talking about the same books. So I'll give you a little bit of variety. I'll recommend some other horror books, and then I'll return back to these ones. And yeah, expect my final thoughts. Otherwise, again, thank you for those that stuck it out to the end. If you're new to my channel and just stumbled upon this, please consider subscribing. I read a lot of horror all year round, as well as thrillers, science fiction, and fantasy. And again, if you stuck around till now and are already subscribed, thank you so much. Give this video a thumbs up, hit the notification bell, feel free to share it around online. And as always, I will talk to you again soon. Happy Halloween, take care, bye.